The sterile scent of the hospital still clung to me, a constant reminder of the weeks I'd lost. Weeks I'd spent battling for my life, oblivious to the battle being waged over my financial security back home. When I finally walked through my front door, the silence was deafening. No welcoming bark from Buster, my golden retriever. No familiar clutter on the coffee table. Just an eerie, echoing emptiness. Started subtly. A bank statement with a puzzling withdrawal. Then another. And another. Panic clawed at my throat as I scrolled through my online banking, the numbers plummeting faster than a stone in a well. My savings, years of careful planning, gone. Every cent I'd painstakingly set aside for a rainy day, for retirement, for life, vanished. He, my seemingly devoted husband, had systematically emptied our joint account, leaving me with nothing but a sinking feeling of betrayal. The rage was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. How could he? How could the man I'd trusted with my heart, my life, do something so utterly despicable? The tears came then, hot and stinging, blurring the numbers on the screen. I felt foolish, naive, utterly broken. But amidst the despair, a flicker of something else ignited. A tiny, almost imperceptible spark of defiance. He thought he'd taken everything. He thought he'd left me high and dry, stranded and helpless. But he forgot one crucial detail, one significant oversight in his greedy scheme. He forgot I had full, undisputed control over the rental properties. The spark of defiance quickly became a roaring fire. I pushed aside the crushing weight of betrayal and focused. The rental properties. 3 of them, all meticulously managed. All bringing in steady, untraceable income. Income that he, in his short-sighted greed, had completely overlooked. He'd focused on the easily accessible liquid assets, the joint accounts, the savings. He'd seen the tree, but missed the entire forest. I pulled out the dusty old filing cabinet, its contents a testament to my meticulous nature. Lease agreements, maintenance records, tenant contacts. Every detail was there. I methodically went through each file, a plan slowly forming in my mind. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about survival. It was about reclaiming my independence, my dignity, and proving to myself and to him that I was far from broken. The first call was to the property manager, a no-nonsense woman named Elena who had worked with me for years. Her voice was calm, reassuring as I explained the situation, omitting the more painful personal details. Consider all future payments redirected to a new, separate account, I instructed, my voice surprisingly steady. And I need a detailed report on any outstanding balances, immediately. Elena, sensing the gravity in my tone, simply replied, "Consider it done, boss." Next I changed all the locks, not just on my house but on the 3 rental units as well. It was a preemptive strike, a clear message that my territory was now clearly defined and fortified. Then I spent hours poring over legal documents, researching my options, understanding the full extent of my rights. Every step was deliberate, every action calculated. He had used my trust as a weapon. I would use his oversight as my shield, and eventually my sword. The game had changed. The first ripple of his awareness came in the form of a voicemail. His voice, usually so smooth and reassuring, was laced with an unfamiliar strain. "Honey, I think there's been a mix-up with the rent payments. Can you call me?" He hadn't even bothered to try my cell. He knew I'd likely blocked him. The message went straight to my home landline, a relic I kept for exactly this kind of oopsie. I didn't return the call. A few days later, a text message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is tenant's name." My rent check was returned. "What's going on?" I replied simply. "New payment instructions were sent out last week. Please check your email. All communication regarding properties should now come directly to me." Short, to the point. No room for ambiguity. The real fun began when he showed up at my door. He looked haggard, his usual polished demeanor replaced by a rumpled urgency. "What's going on with the rentals, my name?" he demanded, trying to force his way in. I stood firm, blocking the entrance. "They're being managed as they always have been," I said, my voice as flat as a still pond. "Just not by you anymore." His face contorted, a mixture of disbelief and dawning realization. You can't do that. We own those together." "Actually," I countered, a slow, grim smile spreading across my face, "the deeds are in my name. Always have been. You forgot that detail, didn't you? Too busy counting the cash from our joint savings." The color drained from his face. He'd made a colossal miscalculation, and he knew it. The look in his eyes was priceless, a potent cocktail of shock, anger, and dawning fear. He had emptied my financial well, but I held the reins to the spring. His attempts to regain control were clumsy and desperate. He tried contacting the tenants directly, spreading fabricated stories about mismanagement and demanding they pay him in cash. Luckily, I had already preempted this, sending clear, certified letters to each tenant outlining the changes and reiterating that all payments should be made to the new account. Elena, ever vigilant, also kept me informed of any unusual inquiries. He even resorted to threats, veiled at first, then increasingly aggressive. He'd call my landline repeatedly, leaving angry messages. He'd send emails filled with legal jargon he clearly didn't understand. It was pathetic, really. The man I thought I knew, the charming and sophisticated partner, was revealed to be nothing more than a petty and vindictive bully. I documented everything. Every call, every message, every attempted interaction. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about protecting myself. I consulted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Isabella, who listened intently to my story, her eyes gleaming with a predatory understanding. "He made a mistake," she said, a thin smile playing on her lips. "A big one. We'll make sure he regrets it." Isabella moved swiftly. She sent him a cease and desist letter, outlining the legal ramifications of his harassment and his unauthorized attempts to interfere with my property management. The letter was formal, intimidating, and left no room for misinterpretation. It was a clear declaration of war, one I was now fully prepared to fight. Meanwhile, the rental income continued to flow into my new account, a steady stream of financial lifeblood that was slowly but surely replenishing what he had so carelessly drained. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the validation, the tangible proof of my independence and resilience. He had tried to break me, but instead, he had inadvertently handed me the tools for my own financial liberation. The cease and desist letter hit him hard. The aggressive calls stopped. The frantic text ceased. The silence was almost unnerving, a stark contrast to his previous desperate attempts at communication. It was the calm before the storm, and I knew it. He wasn't one to give up easily, especially when money was involved. My lawyer, Isabella, was a force of nature. She systematically built a case against him, compiling evidence of his financial malfeasance and his subsequent harassment. She even managed to unearth some questionable business dealings from his past, painting a clear picture of a man who consistently operated on the fringes of legality. The more she dug, the more disgusted I became, but also the more resolved. This wasn't just about my stolen savings. It was about holding a manipulative individual accountable for his actions. One afternoon, a formal summons arrived. He was suing me. For what, I wasn't entirely sure, but the absurdity of it almost made me laugh. He, the thief, was now attempting to play the victim. It was a desperate move, a last-ditch effort to intimidate me into backing down. But intimidation no longer worked. I had found my footing, my strength, and a formidable ally in Isabella. "Let him come," Isabella said, a glint in her eye. "We're ready." Her confidence was infectious. The fear that had once paralyzed me was replaced by a quiet determination. He had underestimated me, assuming my hospitalization had left me vulnerable and weak. He had forgotten that sometimes, the greatest strength is forged in the fires of adversity. He had taken my money, but in doing so, he had given me something far more valuable: my power back. The courtroom air was thick with tension, a sterile echo of the emotional storm brewing within me. He sat across the aisle, attempting to project an air of injured innocence, but I saw the flicker of desperation in his eyes. He had no idea the extent of the evidence Isabella had meticulously gathered. Isabella was a maestro. She presented bank statements, email exchanges, and the meticulously documented timeline of his withdrawals versus my hospitalization. She brought in Elena, the property manager, who calmly detailed how he had tried to interfere with the rental collections. Then, the tenants themselves took the stand, recounting his attempts to coerce them into paying him directly, their testimonies painting a picture of his growing desperation. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke with a quiet resolve. I recounted the shock of discovering my emptied accounts, the betrayal, and the dawning realization of his oversight regarding the properties. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't allow my emotions to overwhelm me. I simply presented the facts, cold and unvarnished. It was more powerful than any outburst. His lawyer, a blustering man who seemed out of his depth, tried to discredit me, to paint me as a vengeful ex-wife. But Isabella anticipated every move, shutting down his attempts with sharp, precise objections. He had no real defense, only accusations and flimsy excuses. The judge, a stern woman with an unreadable expression, listened intently to every word. The weight of the evidence was undeniable. The ruling was swift and decisive. He was ordered to return every cent he had taken from my savings, with interest. Furthermore, he was sanctioned for his harassment and attempts to interfere with my property income. The rental properties, unequivocally, remained under my sole control. As the gavel came down, a wave of relief washed over me, so profound it almost brought me to my knees. It wasn't just about the money. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and proving that even from the depths of vulnerability, one could rise stronger and more resilient than ever before. He had emptied my savings, but he had inadvertently filled my spirit with an unshakable resolve. The aftermath wasn't instantaneous peace, but it was a profound shift. He appealed the decision, of course, a desperate flailing, but Isabella was ready. Each appeal was met with another resounding defeat, each legal maneuver costing him more money, further draining his resources. The well he had so gleefully emptied from my life was now rapidly drying up for him. Focused on rebuilding. The rental income, once a steady hum in the background, now became the engine of my recovery. I diversified my investments, learned more about financial planning, and sought advice from a new, trustworthy circle of professionals. The experience, though traumatic, had inadvertently ignited a dormant passion for financial literacy and independence within me. Buster, my golden retriever, finally came home. A friend had been caring for him, and his joyous barks and wagging tail filled the quiet house with much-needed warmth. I redecorated, purging the spaces of memories tainted by his presence. Each new piece of furniture, each freshly painted wall, was a brushstroke in my masterpiece of renewal. Life, I realized, was not about avoiding storms, but about learning to navigate them. He had tried to sink my ship, but he had only taught me how to sail better, stronger, and in a direction entirely of my own choosing. The empty savings account had been a painful beginning, but the full control over my properties had been my salvation, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there are always overlooked resources, hidden strengths, waiting to be discovered.